Hello, everyone, and welcome to Against the Odds, our new prediction market stream. Talking everything prediction markets, our favorite bets, and a whole lot more. Today is Thursday, October 16th. We were off for a few weeks. It's been almost a month now. A lot has happened. We've got a lot to catch up on. We are so back. Jeeps, how are you? Are you feeling back?
What's up, Tyler? Man, when I look at my PA, I do not feel back. In fact, I feel very the opposite. But overall, man, I'm doing great. You can see here I'm not in the office. I'm hung up in bed, got a little ACL reconstruction surgery, but my knee is on the up. And I think today coming back, I'm excited to chat prediction markets with you. A lot to cover.
Well, one advantage of being stuck in bed is it does allow you for more time in front of the screens and digging into some of these markets. We're going to put crypto market totally aside right now because it's ugly. It's ugly out there, folks. For the next hour, hour and a half, we are talking prediction markets, which are up only. That much is clear. We're going to talk about a lot. These recent raises, volumes up and to the right, some spicy potential inside trading, maybe not. And then some of our favorite bets as well. And then at the half hour mark, we are talking to ICO Beast about his decision to join Kalshi, Kalshi's growth path, the badges wars, plus a whole lot more. So we are excited for that. I mean, Jeeves, let's just dive right in. I'll fire up the screen share for those who are in the stream here. We are live on Kick and X. So certainly jump in and join us. But our last show before we took the break, there was rumors of this Polymarket raise, and it looks like the rumors were made true. $9 billion they're valued at. The New York Stock Exchange parent company, ICE, invested $2 billion. And as a part of the deal, Polymarket is going to get the distribution through the New York Stock Exchange. Felt like a pretty big story. That's kind of already maybe not being talked about super loudly. The news cycle is incredibly fast in the crypto and prediction market space. But what are your reactions? How are you feeling about this? Are they appropriately valued?
Wow. I mean, look, $9 billion is an incredible valuation, for any company. And hats off to Shane. He's built a really great product. It's now being talked about in circles. My normie friends talk about prediction markets. You have Tom Brady calling out, check the poly market, not even check the prediction market. It's check the poly
Mhm.
market. So poly market is becoming the de facto term when it comes to prediction markets. Look, if you look at volumes across Polymarket and Kalshi right now, you're looking at near all-time highs again, similar to what we saw around the presidential election right there. I mean, things are skyrocketing. And I think people realize this is a really interesting way to express niche and interesting bets around ideas that they have and that they feel the opportunity they have edge still in a world full of markets where you don't feel like you have an edge. Let's be real. So, yeah, I think I have to look at this and say, like, hats off to them. Great company, great valuation, and I think they continue to grow from here. And that 9 billion valuation, it'll look good in a few years.
The other raise, just a week later, I want to say. So Kalshi raised $300 million from some heavy hitters. I think Sequoia, A16Z was in the mix, valuing them at $5 billion. They also announced this raise at the same time as doing their global rollout. I believe they went live in 140 different countries or so. So yeah, they raised from Sequoia, A16Z, Paradigm, and more. What do you make of Kalshi at $5 billion versus Polymarket at $9 billion? And we do have ICO coming on in 20 minutes to talk Kalshi. So I'm excited to get his view on that. The reason I asked that question is twofold. So you got Tom Brady saying Polymarket on national TV, but the volumes tell a slightly different story. I mean, Kalshi's ahead objectively. Like,
It
and
is. It is. Yeah.
this
So
market share.
if you go to Artemis, it tells a slightly different story.
Mm,
So I'll walk you through why I think we're seeing Kalshi volumes spike a bit more. And it's 2 days of the week, Tyler, Saturday and Sunday. America's two favorite days. You have college football on Saturdays. You have the NFL on Sundays. And if we look at the data on Artemis, it'll show us the dailies, and you can see the massive spikes during those 2 days specifically. But on every other day, Polymarket's nearly beating it in volume. And so it just shows how, Kalshi's now ingrained. I think, they have a partnership with Robinhood, and they have some other distribution partners. And they've clearly done a great job becoming the de facto sports prediction market at this point. And it's kind of funny, like they don't call the teams what they are. It's the pro American football championship or whatever, pro baseball championship. They don't say the names of the teams. It's Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. It's not the Steelers at the Bengals. Um, and this has been the clear differentiating factor for them, I think. And a lot of the sports volumes you're seeing here and being distributed to the public. What's your read on it, Tyler?
I think the sports are the driver for Kalshi. So I guess it raises the question of like, what would you rather be your core driver? Is there more risk in being sports led, just knowing how competitive that broader space is? And we know, right, Underdog is getting in the game. We know DraftKings and FanDuel. I think there's rumors that they're building prediction markets, right? So it's going to be crowded, but at the same time, sports is huge, and they're leading there. So I don't know. I struggle to see a 2x difference, I guess, right now.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
that
I think
position.
it's clear that Polymarket owns the political landscape. And with midterms coming up, I'm excited to see the volumes we'll have there, how people will be looking at, Polymarket versus the polls that are coming out to determine who the winners are. Right. Polymarket's going to tell us this before the polls, which is going to be, just put it further onto the map. But Tyler, you bring up a great point around sports, which is Kalshi is, I think, partially a SaaS business in that you can, sort of white label the product, integrate the product in. But if you're a big sports book, how incentivized are you to white label their product? First, just create your own. You own the users, you own the liquidity, you own the distribution. So, that's a great point that like the moat on the sports side of the house is and I think likely will diminish over time. But yeah, I want to talk to ICO. I want to get
Yeah.
his take on where he sees this going, and really understand how does Kalshi continue to keep this lead on sports? Because if you become the leading prediction market sports book over time, it's not a bad place to be.
It's a good place to be. My take on Polymarket leading the political markets, it's clearly true. So like the New York City mayor election, they've done 180 million volume. Looks like it's 34 million over on Kalshi for the same market. A notable difference with
Hmm.
Cuomo at 14% versus Poly. But I guess where my head immediately goes is wouldn't they just arb out? It's like in this new era where most savvy traders are trading across both platforms, right? I'm actually surprised to see such a volume discrepancy. Like that's my counter to you saying Polymarket is the political markets, home. My counter would be, well, the second the odds get out of line with Kalshi, like wouldn't you just go arb them out? And I guess it just comes down to where the market makers and liquidity is at the end of the day. But that's going to be a
Yeah.
very interesting trend to watch as this new era plays out with these two, 1-2 big dogs running out similar markets.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
give Polymarket credit for his brand value, right? I think the Tom Brady analogy hits it perfect over the head. Right? He says, "Let's check the Polymarket," and he probably meant to say, "Let's check the prediction market odds," but in his head, he called it the Polymarket, and that is maybe it's 4 billion in brand value. I want to talk volumes a little bit more. Do you think this trend is continuing? Do you think we're going to continue going up and to the right, like over the next quarter?
Yes. I now think that, like I said, with some of the political stuff coming up, um, with prediction markets and gambling culture becoming more and more easily accessible. With Polymarket hinting today, right? You better be signed up, otherwise, you know, you're gonna have some issues. With them coming to the US and it becoming now legal to use Polymarket in the US, which I still think a large swath of Polymarket users are likely in the US. But I think with them officially coming to the US, you're going to see this hockey stick. I think 1.5 is going to be a, you know, blip on the map uh, in the next, call it 6 to 12 months. And people aren't going to pick up FanDuel. They're not going to pick up DraftKings as much. They're going to come here. They're going to place their bets, especially as you start to see parlays become easier. As you start to see people feel like they have some form of asymmetric information where they can dive into these markets. You have to realize I hate to say it, but we are so early to prediction markets and have been really early to these. And we know a lot of folks who they're sleuthing, right? They're going in and trying to figure out the smallest little indications. And, you know, I read an article yesterday, I think it was in Bloomberg or the Journal, around how the insider for the Venezuelan market ended up getting the information. And it was, you know, they claim that the website for the Nobel Peace Prize was built
Yeah.
on WordPress, right? And that it flashed or indicated the winner early, and that's how they were able to get that information. And yeah, that's just someone, you know, being a dog about getting the information they need.
I don't consider this inside trading, right? So let's set the stage. I think there's been a bit of outcry, might be the right word. Some folks kind of drumming up, a little upset on some signs, some signals of inside trading in some prediction markets. And I've also seen the argument that, you know, prediction markets are truth-telling machines and insiders tell you the truth. So that's the market doing its job. I'm a little murky on all that. And I do think we'll probably see some kind of inside trading regulation come down the pipe in the near future. I mean, the reality is, like, right now, so like my wife works at company ABC, and she's an exec, and I have inside information on if they're going to meet earnings this quarter. I can't trade the stock, and I would risk serious legal problems, even telling friends that information to let them trade it. But I could bet the Polymarket, right? Are there any rules or laws against that? Perhaps an
I think
ethical
that,
violation.
you know, it's funny. Matt Levine talks about this, and the way he phrases it is like that's actually still kind of insider information. Um, but where it doesn't become insider information is if you're betting the market on yourself. So like where there
Mm.
is, you know, an open opportunity is like he gave the example of Mayor Eric Adams. Adams should have just, you know, levered home on Cuomo, on him dropping out, on everything else, and then dropped out, which maybe he did. I don't know. But even Bill, you know, we talked about this on the show about a month ago, how Bill Ackman was even urging him, like, hey, go on, make these bets on yourself, drop out and make some money. You're not going to win. Go for it. That's where it
That's why.
becomes, you know, not insider information, but it is, I think, when, you know, when you have certain private information and are able to act on it, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice by any means. Do not heed this. Speak to a professional of some sort, but that's my understanding of it.
Be careful out there. And if you're going to do it, I guess make sure it's enough to make it worth it. I wouldn't be doing it for $50. So the reason we're talking about this is the Nobel Peace Prize market was bouncing around all over the place in the evening on October 9th. So yeah, about a week ago, we knew the results were going to come in. I think published in late in the evening or first thing on the 10th. And someone came in, basically moved the odds. Maria Machado was 3% to win. Odds shot up to 70%, sold off a bit, and then kind of hung steady at that 65 to 70, and then they resolved to 100 in the morning. When it came out that she won, a lot of folks said, okay, this has got to be somebody who had access to the info. Only 5 people knew this. How is this possible? And then Phantom Bets kind of discloses this information that effectively a WordPress site had a picture of her uh, in the afternoon around the time that these bets were made, and that a savvy person effectively could have been scraping the site and saw the image and made the bet. So a very logical explanation for how this could have resolved, right? And how, and arguably the beauty of these markets is that if you put the research in, if you're creative enough and use enough ingenuity, that you can, really find the edge. And perhaps someone did.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, friend of the show, Kicks, he says that all the time. Says, you know, there's plenty of opportunity for everyone to have an edge in these markets if you're willing to go do the research. And eventually, I think that will dwindle, and these will really become truth machines that are arbed and priced appropriately via AI and other factors. And I think we're slowly getting there, but there's still a human edge here. And I think that's existed in a number of different markets in the past, whether it was sports gambling, probably stock trading back in the day, right? Those markets slowly become less and less efficient, or sorry, more and more efficient. And same thing's going to happen here over time. So you really have to seize the opportunity while you can.
I want to dig in and talk some personal bets. So I want to know what you've been betting. I'm going to start though and recap, because I got hot and then ice cold and made some very rookie mistakes, and I'm going to share them for folks so they can avoid my fall from grace. So I hit pretty big on the Israel-Gaza ceasefire bet. I tailed Udi, the Taproot Wizards founder. He was very public that he thought that conflict would resolve in a ceasefire. So made a sizable wager on that to end in October, and it did. My biggest win since Biden dropped out. So biggest win in a year. But then I had the cash in the account and got fast and loose and started making bets on emotion rather than research. So I took Trump to win the Nobel Peace Prize on the back of the Israel Gaza ceasefire, and it turns out that like even the look back period for that didn't even include the resolution of that conflict. So I was basically drawing dead from the second I made it. So I gave some gains back there, and made a couple other, not the best bets, not on my own, real research or conviction. So be careful after big wins. Maybe take a break, take a pause, and start thinking about where you want to position next. But I think you and I are both looking at this Gemini market now. So I'm curious, do you have what brought you to this market, if you don't mind sharing? Did you see was it Twitter? Was it what, group chats, just knowledge about Gemini? Like what?
Yeah, yeah. It was I've been sitting in the Cuomo for New York mayor bet for a little bit. It's been pretty uncomfy. I thought it was mispriced for a while as I was thinking about like who would be dropping out, what were Cuomo's chances? And it's not like I thought he was going to win, but I thought his odds were going to increase from 10 to 15% to like 20 to 30% at minimum. And they really haven't. Mamdani stayed really strong around that 90% mark. So it's pretty uncomfy in there. And then, yeah, a friend of ours tipped us off on this and said, hey, like, I think that there's a chance that this could be a little mispriced. There was an article that came out hinting that Gemini 3 could be released on October 22nd, pretty soon from now. And the more research I kind of did on this, the more I realized, okay, like there's actually a pretty credible opportunity that this happens. And maybe this is a bit mispriced, but now I'm feeling it's maybe appropriately priced, maybe slightly mispriced. And look, this market, although it says it resolves on October 31st, I think it really resolves on October 22nd. And we could
Mhm.
see a heavy lead up into this increasing over time. Gemini is due for a new release of its product. When you look at the current wars that's going on with different LLMs, I think they really want to compete in this space, and I think they're really doing a great job with some of the Gemini products, and I'm personally excited to go use this and see how it benchmarks up against ChatGPT. So This is one of them. You know, we talked a little bit about some sports markets.
Before we go off,
Yeah.
I want to comment on this one real quick. So I saw folks talking about it on X that the potential inside trader came in. If you look at the order book, I think one of the top holders, Easy Money Sniper 69, bought like 24,000 shares. It was the only bet they've ever made. So folks think, okay, maybe is that an insider who thinks this is coming? We also had the leak, right, that some folks thought it was going to come on October 22nd. The price action is a little messy. I did, Buddy and I, we both asked Grok and ChatGPT for what odds it would put on Gemini release by October 31st. Grok said 75%, ChatGPT said 70%. So the robots like it a bit higher than here. So that was enough for me to put in a position at 50.
Tyler, what did Gemini say?
I did not ask Gemini. I'm not a Gemini user.
Let me ask it right now.
Yeah, ask it live. See if we can get direct alpha. I'm not sure we could really trust it one way or the other there. But this is an interesting one. And part of the reason why I found this is there's more and more of these tools and X accounts that are becoming very valuable to follow. And like this Polymarket tracker account on X, its handle is at @polyinsider_. Go check this one out if you're actively grinding these prediction markets. So what it does is it will tell you when fresh wallets come up and make sizable bets, potential signs of someone who may have information. Of course, not always. It could just be a brand new person spinning up a new account. And then, of course, there's ways to game it. But fresh wallets when they make big bets, and then also whales. So pretty interesting account to start checking out as folks start to kind of get their foot in the door. And, you know, there's a whole lot of things to bet on. So sometimes it can be hard to figure out like where you even want to direct your attention. And sometimes these can be the catalyst to get you to dig in to a market. Do we have an update from Gemini?
Gemini was a little coy in answering it at first. And it gave me a little bit of a runaround. It said, look, while there's no official confirmation from Google, a significant volume of credible leaks and rumors point to a potential announcement regarding Gemini 3 on or around October 22nd. However, whether this will translate to a full public release by October 31st remains less clear, leading to a nuanced probability. So I said, give me the probability. Wow. Okay. Tyler. 75%.
All the robots are aligned at 75%.
Yeah, 70 to 75%. Okay.
Interesting. I'm going to take a hard look at that market again here this evening. Well, I've got a few other bets that I do want to talk to you about, but we might table them just for a little while. Folks, we've got ICO in the studio. We're going to bring ICO up on stage here. I've been excited for this one. Quick intro, folks. If you aren't familiar with ICO Beast, he took the whole crypto Twitter space by absolute storm, arguably the fastest growing account in our social arena. He's parlayed that growth, some trading success into leaving his IRL job, took a quick stint at an NFT company, and now he had the bombshell announcement, a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, and he's at Kalshi now. ICO, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this since we talked yesterday. It's always a good time when I get to shoot the breeze on crypto, prediction markets, all the happenings when you guys are hosting. So really excited to be here.
Well, let's dig right in. Let's talk about the decision. You know, what made you join Kalshi? Was it a hard one for you to make?
Yeah, man. So it was a hard decision. As you mentioned, I previously, so I left my real life job a number of months back and went to go work Proof of Play. And I really, really loved the people there. It was a fun company to work at. And it was fun. Like I wasn't expecting to go anywhere else. I wasn't looking for anything. And out of the blue, I got a call from John Wang. And he had just started at Kalshi, and he was like, hey, man, we have this really big vision for what we want the crypto arm of the company to look like. And I need people to come build it with me. And the opportunity to jump on board kind of a rocket ship, unicorn companies doesn't happen all the time. And it was, I spent about a week or so kind of back and forth, not discussing with companies, whatever, but just back and forth with myself and my family, just kind of trying to figure out if it made sense, what fallout would be there if there was fallout, and it ultimately just like it's a really exciting challenge. So like Kalshi is kind of the not incumbent, so they're largely seen as the outsider on crypto Twitter, and the reality is like we've got a huge market share outside of crypto in TradFi and other markets. And I got to talk with Tarek, CEO, about his vision for crypto when it comes to fintech companies and when it comes to prediction markets in particular. And the way that he sees it is that in 2-3 years, there's probably not really any distinction between crypto and non-crypto companies. There's just going to be fintech and digital finance companies that use crypto where it matters and like where it makes sense. And they don't bother with it in other areas where it doesn't make sense. And so for me, that like resonates very deeply. I believe that crypto is here to stay. I think we're all kind of, if we're in the industry at this point, you have to at least believe that at some level, or you're taking a dead end spot. And I think I can see how that would work. So like we've got a gigantic regulated exchange that runs off chain on Web 2 rails, but there's this like everybody knows crypto Twitter has kind of like the most cutting edge user base. Like we're willing to try anything. We will try things. There's a ton of liquidity concentrated here. There's people that are interested in building like new, unique money Legos that don't exist yet or haven't been contemplated. And so I think that that's the fun part is we're getting to basically build out what an on-chain, well, I mean, like we're not building it necessarily, but the idea is exploring what an on-chain integration looks like and what Kalshi can do when it comes to crypto, like figure out how to implement smart contracts and permissionless spaces in ways that we're allowed to, that the regulators are cool with, and just kind of feel out how that works. I mean, obviously, there are other prediction markets that are doing that in the space currently, that are building permissionless markets and building that. We've kind of gone the opposite route up until now, and kind of now trying to explore what that looks like in that space. So I think the biggest draw was that it was this kind of like blue sky open space. There was the opportunity to try to grow something from 0 to 1, as opposed to coming in. So like, I mean, if the crypto arm had been around for 4 or 5 years at this point, that would have been a much more difficult thing to say yes to, just because it would be kind of dealing with the history of decisions that are already made and like trying to fit into that framework. But this is where we're getting to basically grow this from the ground up. And I think that's really exciting.
It is exciting and fairly rare, to get the opportunity to go work at a rocket ship startup. So congrats to you on getting the job offer and accepting it. So what do you do there? Like, what is your specific focus?
Yeah, so it's like I feel like a hat salesman with the number of hats that I wear on a day-to-day basis. I feel like it's probably somewhat standard for most startups anyway. But there's an element of affiliate management and partnership negotiation. So there's some pieces of that. The first couple of weeks were pretty heavy in negotiating deals, trying to build out kind of our roster of supporters and friendlies. We were obviously coming in from like a bit of a behind. Like we definitely didn't have a head start here, given that other companies have been operating in crypto a lot longer. So that was kind of a sprint to try to figure out who actually used Kalshi, who was curious about it, who was interested in it, and build that out. There are some product side things that I've been doing also that we'll see more of those. Like I think this week you saw we rolled out some partnerships with infrastructure providers to get Kalshi market data available on a whole bunch of chains through oracles. So we've got a number of things like that that are kind of internal focused, and I've been working with some of the product development side of things, testing UX, and like being able to bring this crypto native user knowledge of, hey, here's how this person's going to use this application. Here's how this person's going to want to interact with what we have, and like pointing out things that are good, pointing things that are bad, and kind of helping the design engineers iterate on that. There's elements of like the culture side of things, trying to figure out how do we list markets that people actually want to trade? How do we target those? And I mean, I think that like mention markets and culture markets, we're seeing a huge piece of excitement over those, and all the various exchanges are starting to list these prediction contracts because there's so much fun. They're like just really interesting to watch, and so that's another piece of it. So it's kind of a little bit of everything right now. I expect that over time it'll consolidate a little bit more into just like more discrete pieces. But at this point, it's like the 4 of us on the crypto team are doing everything as fast as we can.
Yeah, and there's a lot to do. So imagine you're quite busy. I'm curious, like what's the war room like coming out of a $5 billion valuation? And in part two, like, so like, I think people are asking, it's like, what is Kalshi going to use the money for? Like it's
that question is probably a little bit above my pay grade. They didn't just hand me $300 million and say, here, go spend
you don't
this.
have a $300 million budget to roll?
No. Unfortunately, no. I could buy a lot more if I had a $300 million budget. But no, I don't know exactly what it's gonna be. So I mean, I would imagine there's like a decent portion of it earmarked for like marketing and growth. That's kind of like, I feel like that's the playbook for startups, is you want to spend money to acquire users and keep doing that until you get to a point where it no longer makes sense to keep shoveling money into the growth engine. I mean, we're very much in a huge parabolic growth stage. If you look at like open interest and like weekly volume on the exchange, it's just exploded over the last few months. And so that's it seems like the growth engine is working. And so we're like figuring out how to continue to amplify things on the social side. We're trying to continue to figure out how to attract liquidity to the various markets. And honestly, it's just cool to see prediction markets in general start to get like mainstream adoption and acceptance. And like you see odds cited on news broadcasts, you see it on billboards, you see it in like press releases and stuff. And so it's just neat to see kind of the truth engine, or like the new era of oracles start to emerge from this new asset class.
Definitely, yeah. ICO, nice to chat with you today. Just to follow up on that one, what are maybe like one or two areas that you'd like to see some more of the funds be funneled into? Some areas that you'd like to see hyperscale and just continue to grow.
Yeah, it's tricky because I'm not very well versed on like the traditional marketing channels. Like I don't have a TikTok. I haven't used Instagram in a decade. Like it's kind of funny that like Twitter is kind of the thing that I do. And so there's a limit of how much spend really makes sense, especially on crypto Twitter, because it is like, even though it's a great place, we love it, like it is still like a relatively small pool of users. And so at some point, spending a crazy amount of money on a small pool of users doesn't make a ton of sense. So I'd imagine that we'll see some like continued growth on marketing campaigns on the traditional side of things. I've seen some of the ads we've been putting out are really fun. We're seeing like inbound from people's families. They're saying, "Oh my gosh, I saw Kalshi on X, Y, or Z broadcast," or "Oh, I saw the odds on this channel. I was out at the sports bar last night and I saw this show up during one of the games." And so I imagine there's a decent bit earmarked for that sort of thing. And that makes sense to me, because I mean, at the end of the day, the TAM for these prediction markets in general is just almost limitless. You look at the number of like events; those are basically infinite. You look at the number of people, and basically we have this idea that there will be a market to trade everything. And so in theory, every single person should be able to find a market that has something they're interested in trading on.
Yeah, everyone feels that they have an edge for sure. Tyler, I know you have some markets up. I'll pass it over to you, then I have a few more questions.
Oh, I mean, I agree with everything ICO has been saying. You're seeing the biggest takeaway is now like how mainstream prediction markets are getting, and how you see them in news articles, you see them on TV. And I mean, where Kalshi really caught my attention a few months back was just their liquidity in these sports markets. So I'm just browsing around. It's like this Nebraska, Minnesota market. If you see this, like you can get 900K in within a few percent of the line. On the other side, you can get 500,000 in within a few percent. Like this is real liquidity, and this is one specific college football game.
Yeah. I mean, we've got really great liquidity across a ton of markets. It's an exciting thing to be a part of. And like, I think for a long time that was a gripe that people had about prediction markets, is just the ability to like size in with any meaningful conviction on a position that you feel like you know what you're doing. It's just like it was hard to do for a long time. And so liquidity allows markets to be more efficient. It allows people with more size to really like express directional intent. And so I think it's definitely exciting to see that liquidity continues to grow and compound. And I think we all kind of know, just anecdotally from experience in crypto, that like liquidity begets liquidity. And so once you start kind of pushing that snowball downhill, it just gets bigger and bigger.
100%. Yeah. I've heard talking about liquidity. I've heard that, there's some big players in the space now, like Susquehanna and other market makers looking to bring that liquidity and that depth, as Tyler just pointed out there. Are you able to shed some light on what that looks like, partnerships, who some of the key market makers are, especially on the sports side? I mean, you guys, the data clearly points toward you guys dominating those markets. Is there anything you can share there?
So I don't really know how all of that plumbing works. I've been super hyper focused on growing the crypto side of things, and obviously, like we have crypto deposits for all these markets or all like the exchange as a whole. But so like the day to day, how does liquidity flow in here? How does it stay? Who pulls the levers? I really don't know the nuts and bolts of that.
Well,
I think
that's all right. Yeah, I know we'll have y'all back on the show to chat about that in the future.
For sure.
I feel like it is the $1 billion question. I feel like so much of us who are just exploring prediction markets for the first time, like wonder, like where is the liquidity coming from? And it is it does matter a lot, right? So my gripe with mention markets. So mentions markets are super fun, and I've played several myself. I'm browsing. Wow, I'm kind of blown away that you've got 16, 20 plus live.
A lot of different ones.
So like this is really blowing up. I actually didn't realize it had.
I think that the mayoral debate tonight has a cool one, I think is what I heard. We're not allowed to trade on the exchange's employees for regulatory reasons, but I think I'd heard that was one that they were getting put up.
It's interesting. So you guys can't play at all on, is that just on Kalshi or is that across all prediction markets?
I think that I don't know this for sure, so I probably can't like say any definitive amount, but I've been told that there's like regulatory reasons that we are not allowed to trade on CFTC regulated exchanges.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Quick question for you here. How do you think sort of the future landscape of prediction markets plays out? Meaning, right now there's the big two, and you guys dominate volume alongside Polymarket. But how do you see the opportunity for one of these up and coming prediction markets to compete with a Kalshi or a Polymarket now? What does that look like? Or do you think that it really just ends up becoming primarily a duopoly or one major winner at the end of the day? Or do you think that we could have 5, 10, 15 prediction markets across, let's say just the US market alone?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. And so the company man in me would say, oh, obviously Kalshi is going to be the biggest. We're going to win the whole thing in the long run. And I think that there is an aspect to it that really what you want to look at to understand the answer here is liquidity. And so liquidity unification, like ultimately people are going to go where they can find the best lines to trade. And so I think that answer kind of comes down to like what the incentives are. Why are the liquidity providers providing where they are? And is there some way to ensure that the top one, top two, top three, do they end up meaningfully attracting and retaining liquidity provision? And that's kind of like, that's the big question, is how do you do that in the long run? Like, does it mean you have to like, I think in the case of like Polymarket, they've been teasing this Poly token who like, I don't think there's been any like official announcement about that, but like Shane tweeted something. Like there's been speculation about that for years. So like definitely there's some interest there from people farming it. There's obviously like there are tons of people apparently providing liquidity to Kalshi, and so we've got a huge amount of open interest and really great liquidity depth across a bunch of markets. And so I think that's kind of the question you have to ask is how does a newcomer or like a new player, how do they meaningfully attract liquidity? Because if they can't, there's not really a chance for them to grow into like a competing place. And I think that's probably the billion, 10 billion, 20 billion, $50 billion question is, can you figure out how to bootstrap new liquidity? And that, like, I mean, if I knew the answer to that, I probably would have started my own exchange and been like, aha, we'll do this. And then I would have had that. But I don't know the answer. But I think that's kind of the indicator for me is figuring out who can attract liquidity and can they do it sustainably forever.
I think that's the hardest part of the business. And early on, you find yourself in a position of putting up some liquidity yourself, and you're effectively playing house, which over a long time period, it's good to be the house, but variance is very real. And if you run bad early on, right, it can put you in a hole that is tricky to build out of. And then at the same time, and the liquidity comment is spot on. I saw Doma, infamous trader, I think one of the better prediction market traders
He's phenomenal.
ever, was saying, he had said in this random post that he'll look at a market, and if there's not enough liquidity to bet, he just closes it forever. And I am very curious. Like, even, I mean, of course, the big dogs, right? Across Poly, across Kalshi, there are still plenty of markets that if you bet a grand or two, you're moving at 10 or 20%. I'm very curious what the future looks like for that.
It is really interesting. And you like find that the more fragmented your liquidity books are, the harder that is to figure out. And that's something that we're very proud about with our international launch. Most recently is that we have a unified liquidity book. And so access to these markets is not going to be this like choppy, oh, there's $100 in liquidity on this one, on this side of the platform, but there's like $1 million worth of liquidity in the US. And so it's having unified liquidity, I think, is a really cool thing. It
is. And I think arguably the most important trend to watch. You were talking about, a bit of the marketing side. I want to come back to the badges wars. So clearly the badges wars are playing out. Like there was a day last week where it felt like my entire timeline was Kalshi badges and Polymarket badges. So are you behind that? Are you helping to pick out the Kalshi badges now for crypto Twitter as a part of your being in the crypto side of the business, or how's this all work?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to reveal too much of the sausage making. I think that nobody on either side would really want that. But there's definitely an aspect of kind of sourcing relationships and talking to people, and kind of for me, it's been big on trying to figure out who actually like wants to use the product, who wants to talk about it. So I just like, the reality is the most interesting and organic content comes from people that actually care about the product. And so that's been something important for me in talking with potential people we partner with or affiliates or whatever. It's just like people that I know. And then on top of that, people that I also know have like real genuine interest in prediction markets. Cause like if I came here, like anybody can come to crypto Twitter and splash a bunch of money and throw badges on people. Like that's part of having a crypto account on Twitter, is people will pay you to talk about stuff. There's something really different though about finding somebody that really likes your product and really wants to talk about it. And you can feel that difference when you read their posts. And so that's been kind of the key for me, is trying to find people that one, I have a relationship with, or if I don't, figuring out how to get a connect to. And then two is trying to figure out if they really want to try out our stuff. And so it's been really fun to get to talk with some friends that I've had in the space for a long time that have been really interested in that. There've been other spots where it didn't quite make sense. And so I know that like crypto Twitter wants it to be this like big old boxing match, mudsling, everything. Like honestly, it's good competition. We both have great companies. Like obviously we want to win, and I'm excited to help push Kalshi to do that. But it's a fun competition.
Do you think it's working? Like, do you think the badges so far are a net positive? Curious for your take.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some like intangible or hard to measure value of having badges kind of all over the timeline, because I don't like have the numbers in front of it. There's marketing concepts of how many times you have to like show somebody something or tell somebody something before it starts to stick. There's like repetition value, I think, in having the right people with badges, posting the right content, or like replying enough times, and people just seeing that, because that kind of gets that association there. There probably is some kind of like saturation point where it stops to have meaningful returns. And I couldn't tell you exactly where that is. It's one of those like, I know when I see it spots. But I do think there is value to having affiliates. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like somewhat a proxy, depending on which way your company goes about trying to badge people up. It can be a proxy for like, do people actually believe in your product? Do they really want to talk about it? And that's like a good social signal. So I do think there's value there. But I also think that like there's probably a saturation point after which it kind of loses some of the effect.
Well, and there's a real window where end users win in all this too.
There is
incentives and opportunities. So I think like this happened with poker, and like the Poker Stars folks, what, a decade, probably 2 decades ago now. And then what, DraftKings versus FanDuel, which is probably closer to a decade ago. I mean, I remember the Sundays when every commercial on Sunday was DraftKings. And I'm curious, are we approaching that for Polymarket and Kalshi commercials here?
Well, you never know, man. Like probably not on TV necessarily, just because I mean, do Zoomers watch TV these days? I don't really know. I think they probably stream more than anything else, or like watch TikTok. But I can see the FanDuel versus DraftKings thing playing out on like Instagram, like in between. I also, like I said, I'm not really an Instagram user, but I assume there's some sort of like short form video thing that like you can slide ads between, or like I'm assuming there's ads on TikTok. So I bet you could see kind of dueling companies and prediction markets like sliding into all of those. Because I mean, you're ultimately, it's a user acquisition place. You go where the users are, and that's probably 18 to 35-year-old people that want to try to figure out how to express that they know better than other people.
Yeah, we definitely need and I'll take sort of the other side on that too, and just expand on it. I think boomers love to be right. And I think there's a huge market for them to start trading here. I've introduced, Polymarket to my father-in-law. He thinks it's incredible. The guys on All In are talking about, the idea of prediction markets constantly. I'd love to see a market on whether or not there will be a Super Bowl commercial for one, if not both of the products. Potentially something you guys can throw up there. I think it's more or less likely, you'd probably want to advertise during these sporting events just because all eyes are on the TV at that point.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, there's even like the concept you could have like a bunch of companies on like a multi-outcome market of, hey, will this company have a Super Bowl commercial and have like 50 strikes or something, and see kind of which one people play. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting spot.
You feel free to take any of these ideas and bring them home, ICO. Yeah.
I mean, the Super Bowl might be the next blow off week of volume, right? Like there's going to be big volumes. There's going to be
all eyes on the Super Bowl.
Probably college football playoffs.
Yeah, that'll be leading up to January, right?
Yeah, we're a couple months out.
Then NBA season's heating up. Looks like, Tyler and I were talking about this earlier around like what does the 5 to 10x look like from here? I think we're both of the belief that like this could and prediction market volume really could hockey stick from here in general in the US. What do you think? Like, what are the unknown market, or what do you think is the catalyst to bring us from a 5 to 10x from here in volumes?
Yeah, so I think all of us spend a lot of time each day thinking about this, because like ultimately that's the question. That is the question for the industries. How do we hit that next 5, 10, 20, 100x on volume and interest? And I think that there probably is some element of sports that's involved in that. The American people in particular love sports. I think there's a huge international appetite for football internationally. That has its own interests. One thing that I do think has a ton of ceiling space and hasn't even gotten close to the top is these culture markets. So mentions and like reality TV based mention markets or reality TV based events, I think just has a huge potential, because I see it as kind of a new form of consuming media. In my head, it's the kind of the Twitch moment for prediction markets. So Twitch didn't really do all that much revolutionary. Like you could stream yourself online for a long time. But to me, what they did that was really innovative was they slapped a chat on top of that live stream. And so it allowed people to start interacting with the stream in a way that previously had never been done. And so I see mention markets in particular, and these associated culture markets, as like a new financial layer that adds on to live media experiences. And so it allows the user to really feel like they're part of the event. And so you can extrapolate that to news, you can extrapolate that to culture. Like last night we had some like culture markets on the Victoria's Secret show. Like there's this whole new ability for people to have skin in the game and feel like they're part of what's happening, and people want to feel like they're part of something. So I think it's this really interesting, super sticky new way to interact with media, and I think there's a ton of cap space there.
We're all piggyback onto that as well. So I agree on the culture side. On the crypto side, you've got a wave of folks who just got liquidated last Friday, myself included. There's been talk about like prediction markets as perps, but like prediction markets as options to a degree, right? Is super interesting to me. So like you can like Bitcoin price on December 31st, or how high will it get? You can't get liquidated in this market.
Correct. You can't get liquidated. And it gets even more interesting. Like if you think, okay, so if we can do like the end of the market is December 31st or whatever, you can think about like making it an even shorter term market, and so making very discrete binary options. So like, oh, what's the price going to be tomorrow, or is it going to be up or down? Like these are kind of, I think, very interesting ideas, and pretty cool like new financial tools, because like there aren't necessarily these like super directional, super short term ways to express market sentiment available through like traditional vehicles. And so like I think yeah, there's like a Bitcoin price range at 1 p.m. Eastern is what I'm seeing on your screen right now. And so it's like that looks like a recurring hourly market. I think there's a ton of space for those sort of things to grow as people decide that they figure out, oh, maybe I could hedge like a spot position on like a very short-term basis and like run it that way. So I think there is a ton to be expanded on here, and a lot of it's market discovery. So I think there's probably a huge portion of people that are interested in crypto or finance that just like don't even know these exist yet.
Yeah.
And it takes like a lot of traders starting to be aware of it first, and then starting to use it before you start to see the volume really crank up.
I think we're at the early stages.
Makes sense. I think the other thing too that people, I think one of the ways that this could hockey stick as well is either via like hedge funds, crypto funds, etc., using this as hedge mechanisms.
Yep.
This is a new form of hedging your different bets.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of big pocketed players that have untold amounts of capital that they need to use in effective and productive ways, and if they can figure out their own strategies for how to run books and that sort of thing, I absolutely think we could see tons of volume pouring in. And candidly, I think that's a great spot for us, being a regulated exchange. I think institutions have they feel a lot more comfort using platforms that have that sort of regulatory clarity and safeguards.
Absolutely. Well, ICO, this has been fantastic. Anything you want to leave our listeners with, or any teasers? Anything folks be out on the lookout for coming down?
Yeah, I would say don't count us out. Especially if you're a crypto guy, if you're a crypto gal, if you are interested in prediction markets. Kalshi is actively leaning into the crypto side of things. They wouldn't have hired myself, they wouldn't hire John, they wouldn't hire Ultra, they wouldn't hire Ollie if we weren't serious about pursuing the crypto out branch from the exchange. And so I think that's just let us cook. We're excited about what we have in the pipe. We want to. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't have joined if I didn't think there was a lot of really cool stuff we could do.
Let Kalshi Crypto cook. All right, you heard it here first, folks. ICO, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
That was good. Man, I feel like I've got a lot more insight.
Yeah, good to hear. The badge stuff, I still don't really understand. I haven't looked into it a ton. Can you explain that just for me real quick?
You've seen both players, Polymarket and Kashi, kind of, I wouldn't call it an arms race, but a bit of a social race to badge up maybe more your traditional crypto KOLs, along with the prediction market traders as well. And I think ultimately it boils down to a marketing mechanism, right?
Gotcha. Interesting.
And I think where it's perhaps got turned up a notch last week, like there was a week where it was just a lot of folks got badged up in a short period of time, and maybe some folks you wouldn't have expected. So we haven't heard the last from the badges wars. I will say that we're at the hour. We can go a little bit over. I do want to talk a couple markets still.
Let's hear it. Yeah. What do you got, Tyler?
And I'm looking at. So we talked Gemini, right? I'll pull up this. Give me a second on this. This Polymarket line. So I tweeted. This is not one that I'm betting yet, but I think is perhaps an interesting one to watch. So I tweeted this out last night. Let's see if I can find it. I'll have to look for it later. But this whale who bet big on Biden to leave the 2024 election and won like $500,000 is back and betting big on Xi Jinping to leave in 2025, which feels like absurd to me that this would happen. It's only 8%. So a non-horse is the account. He's got 3.3 million shares now. So he's got a $250,000 position Z out in 2025. What caught my attention was his lifetime P&L. So he's up 488K in a lifetime, which is probably top 0.0001% for prediction market traders. And that's even counting the 50K he's down on Z out. It's interesting. And it could be a hedge. It could be an ARB, like he's got other accounts on the other side of this, right? So it's one you got to be careful of, but it did pique my attention quite a bit.
That is an interesting one. It could be. I think there is a bit of unrest in China right now with how things are being handled with the U.S., but my understanding also is there's not many options over there. Okay, one of the markets, Tyler, I want to point out, and I can't find it right now, but there was a market around will Satoshi Nakamoto's identity be revealed this year. Did you see this?
Oh, I saw Satoshi move any Bitcoin, which spiked to 14% last night.
Oh, that was the one. Yeah. Well, Satoshi moved Bitcoin, and it spiked, and then it's since been sold down. But this one was a really weird blip. And it looks like someone just yeeted a ton, and then the market was pretty swiftly sold down, but still even sitting at 5%. I mean, we don't have that much time left this year. I'm curious what this person was thinking. Right? I'd love to get insight. And is there comment sections actually in here?
Of course, comments are one of the best
Yeah,
parts.
here we go. Yeah, Satoshi come back.
Yeah.
Just really strange one. I wanted to talk about the sports market really quickly. In one area, I felt like I had an edge this year, and one of the bets I'm actually up about 3x on right now that I'll continue to hold for a bit, and that's the Super Bowl champion. So, or as Kalshi calls it, the Pro Football Championship. And I bet this one early in the year, and I think this is some bets that I will continue to take early on, which is the probability of 1% teams turning into 3 to 5% teams. And there's been a number here that you could have just cleaned up on. I think if you really knew the team was going to do well. I took Pittsburgh because that's the team I know. I felt that they were really mispriced given the team that they had, defense they had, picking up DK Metcalf. And this one traded from 1% up to 3%. Also saw, teams like Indianapolis. I could never have predicted this one, so I can't say that I had any idea, but they've done really well so far this season, and clearly are performing well. You have teams like Philly who have dropped from being a darling to where they're at today. KC's gone up. I think initially they were not where they're at today. So there's a few of these where I think I'm gonna place pretty heavy bets on a few teams early in the season that I think are just criminally underpriced, not to actually win it, but to go from that 1 to 5%.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think there's ways you can look at this and not even trade this to resolution by any means, but come into it with the mindset of you want to find a 1% or 2% team that can double or triple their odds. So you look at the early season schedule, who's got the probability of running good to start, and you got the position. I think that's super interesting. A few other bets that I'm looking at over on the Myriad side. We'll give Myriad a couple shout outs here. This Mando versus KBM market, I thought 120K before 100K was a lock, but it looks like
KBM flipped. He flipped them.
Yeah, I see 108.5. That's not great. So the Bears are in control of this one, but still some time left on this. I like this gold versus ETH market quite a bit. So gold's been on a tear. I think anyone following markets has seen that. It's going up 1 to 2% per day. When this market opened yesterday, again, not a whole lot of volume on this just yet. Gold was at 36%. So you get close to 3 to 1 on your money versus ETH. So I did add to this one. I don't know if gold's going to make it all the way to 5K. That seems like a crazy move. But my gut read is ETH chops declines for the near future. So we'll probably see the odds flip and maybe catch a 2X at 36, like 65, 70%, and maybe close out there. Because I do still think ETH has a shot to get 5K here this year, but not anytime soon. And
I'm with you.
my other gold bet, perhaps hedging. Will Bitcoin outperform gold in 2025? This is my Bitcoin belief still kind of coming through. You can get effectively 5-1 on Bitcoin. It's down quite a bit. So you need Bitcoin to go to 150, 160, and you need gold to probably stop in its tracks. So 5-1, probably the right odds, but I don't know. I could see us running this out. As gold.
This one, the thing is that this one can flip really, really, really fast.
And 2 weeks
but
ago,
that's
it
probably
was
priced
much
appropriately.
closer. Yeah, I mean, when Bitcoin was 126, it was like a 25% move away, which certainly you could see happen in a month. And the odds are much closer. So this is more of a long shot bet. I don't put don't bet the house on this one by any means. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be in markets. Was there any other ones that you've been looking at? We went through quite a bit today.
I'm going to save this for next time, Tyler, and maybe our next guest, but I want to talk perpetual markets, open-ended markets. I don't want to get into them right now. I know we're at the end of the show here. But that's it. Safe playing, everyone. Get out there and, check out the truth machines.
And don't be afraid to go against the odds. All right,
don't
folks.
Be afraid to go against the odds. That's
Thanks
right.
for joining us. Great show. We'll see you next week.
Great to see you, Tyler. Take care.